AviaDev brings you SkyHeroes. These heroes are slightly different. They don't possess any superpowers. They are not going to save the world. But if you're interested in aviation and you need a little break from all the negative news, they might save your day. Because they breathe the aviation industry inside out. They have decades of experience in the business. They have an opinion, and they are not afraid to use it. SkyHeroes. And now your host. Very few people across the globe are able to pronounce his name correctly, but he doesn't really care. Jorgen taught.
That's absolutely right. SkyHeroes are back. Welcome again, everybody. We are back with our Aviation Talkshow, where three of our industry experts will be sharing their open opinions on hot aviation topics in a light way, sometimes controversial, sometimes not completely politically correct, hopefully sometimes also funny, but always to the point and without any filter. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jorgen Todt. I'm the Managing Director at AviaDev Europe. And we are here again for you, bringing our aviation talk show SkyHeroes. As always, only myself and our SkyHeroes are able to use the microphone and cameras, but as always, we invite you to join the discussion, to join the chat, to ask the questions in the Q&A section. Many of you are already doing that. So best regards to Gavin, to Lisbon. Hello, Clive in Lincoln. Hello, Jimmy in Dubai. Thanks a lot for joining us again. And now let me welcome our SkyHeroes. John Grant, partner at Midas Aviation, the engine behind AviaDev Consult, chief analyst at OAG. Max Oldorf, CCO and co-founder at CH Aviation, and Hans-Jorgen Elnaes, independent aviation analyst with deep industry knowledge, especially but not limited to Scandinavian market. Hi guys, welcome back.
Hi.
Before we jump
Hello.
into our today's topic, there's quite a lot. I'm looking forward to it. But before we do that, Max, why don't you share with us your airport experience recently? I know you've been traveling quite a lot. You just told us before we went live that you are planning your next flight for the upcoming weekend. So when we compare it to what we hear about 6 hours queues in London Heathrow, how's your airport experience been recently?
Well, I mean, John always claims it's Heathrow, but that is, in all honesty, that is not much different to what I've experienced at Heathrow before there even was a pandemic, right? So, no, just kidding. I have to say, I've been flying very frequently. I mean, I've been grounded last year, as probably everyone else in Europe, between March and May, and then from that moment on, I was back in the air. So since then, I just counted it myself. I did 49 flights, which I think is acceptable if you call yourself an F geek. I've been mainly traveling through Zurich, Frankfurt, Zagreb. I've been a bit to Italy. I've been blessed to live in a country that has a let's say more relaxed take on traveling. So here in Switzerland, we are able to. Well, actually, I've been to Dubai as well. So we have a more relaxed policy on traveling. And you have more stability. So obviously they put countries on the blacklist, but they do that based on the new incidences, the new cases the other countries had. And if that's 60 more than the average in Switzerland, they put you on a list. But they do that with a 2 weeks notice period. So if I'm here today and I'm like, oh, I really need the sun, I want to go to Dubai because Dubai right now is not on the list, so I can go there coming back without quarantining. I have at least 2 weeks that I can plan in advance. So I think that helps these bookings. And my experience has been great. So if it wouldn't be that devastating for the industry, I would say let's keep it like this. There's no queues, there's no problems. Even this testing stuff works good. I mean, that is the funny thing because I was flying without any tests for almost until the beginning of this year, and then they introduced these tests. So now you take a test, you fly. At the beginning it was PCR tests. It made it more costly. Now you have the antigen tests. So you just take those 24 or 48 hours before departure. All the airlines want to see that. It's usually Swissport or the check-in guys that do it before you go there. and they check you on that. Funny enough, there's always passengers that are getting offloaded on these flights. I hadn't had a single one where everyone got on board, because usually people show up with wrong tests or whatever. I also suspect that a lot of people have fake tests, because really it's just a piece of paper and no one checks it. The only thing you need to make sure is, if you have an antigen test, you have to have one of those that are approved by the EU. If you're coming with a Chinese one that is not approved, you're in trouble. But besides that, yeah, it's because there is not that many passengers. It's rather seamless, nice traveling actually. And I mean, what was a bit painful in the winter was when you were connecting, there were no lounges. So I mean, it's the whole stupidity of the whole thing shows it a bit. I was connecting through Frankfurt last week, and the Senator Lounge there is open, so you can go into the lounge, but you can't eat in there. So what Lufthansa does is, when you leave the lounge, you get your care package, and then you take that one, and it has a sandwich and an apple and whatever. So everyone sits on the benches in front of these on the lounge and eats it there. So it's probably worse than it should be otherwise. But yeah, besides that, traveling is nice. It can only, if you have the chance, go and do it. I've been on 49 flights. I hadn't had COVID so far. I'm getting tested once or twice a week. That's the only unpleasant thing, the testing. That's something I'm not getting used to. But besides that, yeah, go out, have fun, see the world. It's very empty right now, so it's pretty nice.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that experience. We're definitely looking forward to see how traffic light system in the UK will look like eventually. So, but let's discuss that later today. But let's start with Norway, with Hans. The saga of Norwegian is entering its next chapter, as it got the green light from the creditors for restructuring. So it looks like the new Norwegian will be much smaller and focus predominantly on the domestic market. Is that all correct, Hans, or did I say something
I think
wrong?
I should bring a little bit, update on what actually had been going on the last 4 or 5 months with Norwegian.
Yes, please, and definitely tell me more about Judge Quinn, because he's been all over the media, and I don't know what's his role, why he's so popular in this Norwegian saga.
Well, I guess he's not so popular with the creditors, but at least he's popular with Norwegian and stuff. But let's go back to November last year. In the end of November, the mid of November, then Norwegian was put under what we call Irish examinership, which is a part kind of a Chapter 11 type restructuring process in Ireland. And in Ireland, they have a long history with aviation. They're very good in this. And Norwegian, they had 2 companies in Dublin, Norwegian Air International and Norwegian Air Aviation, Arctic Aviation, which had all their airplanes, and Norwegian Air International had the control of the long haul. So it was obvious that the examinership should take place in Dublin, and just a few days later, a similar process took place in Norway, which put Norwegian Air Shuttle, the mother company, under a Chapter 11 restructure process in Norway. So since end of November and until today, there has been an ongoing process which mainly has been dealing to get agreements with the creditors. If we look on the numbers, when Norwegian went into, let's make it easy, call it Chapter 11 in November, the debt was around 6.5 billion euro. And those 6.5 billion euro, they do not include future aircraft deliveries from Boeing and Airbus. That's another 8 billion euros. So during these 4 or 5 months now, the negotiations have been going on step by step, ups and downs. But now in the end of March, beginning of April, it all came to a solid base. The creditors actually have been yielding 4.5 billion euros. So there is 1 billion euros left, 2 billion euros left in debt and aviation airline commitments, aircraft commitments. And that means that the new Norwegian today will emerge in the end of May with the net debts about net interest-bearing debt for were about 1 billion euro, and 0.5, 600, 700 million euros in aircraft liabilities. So that means that Norwegian will be a very, very attractive airline in terms of cost base. And that is the only way that Norwegian could go forward. And to obtain this, they had to get rid of all the long-haul fleets. That was 36 Boeing 787-8 and 787-9s. And all those 36 aircraft are out of Norwegian fleet, been taken back by the leasing companies. And this had a significant impact on the whole operation of Norwegian, and also the total impact on staff, which in last year was around 10,000 full-time employees, and the new Norwegian will be around 3,000 employees. So it's a significant downscaling of the company, and the future of Norwegian will be domestic in Norway. We've been flying in the Nordic countries, and routes from the Nordic countries to destinations in Europe. Basically, that's what it is.
Hans, I have a question for you. If I'm allowed to ask that. So if I understand it correctly, you correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's a lot of numbers around Norwegian right now, and it's like I feel reminded like when Europe tried to save Greece from financial default. The numbers were just growing, and at some point I lost how much they actually spent on them. But so the creditors had to forfeit now 4.7 billion something US dollars, and then and the manufacturers are getting canceled orders in an amount of another 8, 9, 10 billion US dollars, right? So and then on the other side, Norwegian is now up actually to raise, I think, around 700 million US dollars in capital, something like that, right?
They are going to do that in the beginning of May, around 600 million euros. Yeah,
so they need that money to actually leave Chapter 11. Or your equivalent, right?
Yes, yeah, that's a good question, Max. And
because my question actually is in week 1 you tell everyone, sorry, we slash about 10 billions in debt, and next week we ask everyone to give us 700 million in loan, right? So I mean, what if I would be someone with money? Would I, having seen that story now, would I give them my money knowing that in 2-3 years they would call their beloved Judge Quinn again and say, sorry, please, we need a haircut? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I reply to Max here. And actually, the situation for Norwegian as we speak is that Judge Quinn and his partner in Oslo, who run the Chapter 11 in Norway, they had a requirement that there need to be a recapitalization of 450 million euros in order for Judge Quinn and his guy in Oslo to sign the exit document for the new Norwegian to emerge. Those 450 million euros are already secured by a hybrid loan from the Norwegian government and some cornerstone investors. So they already today have 460 million euros committed. So there is nothing that will, I would say, should destroy the path forward for Norwegian. In addition, there will be a share raise for up to 150 million more. So the total capital for Norwegian during May will be from the market around 600 million euros. And to get back to one question for your eyes, so I forgot to talk about, is Judge Quinn. Judge Quinn has been a tough guy. It has been tough with Norwegian, it's been tough with the creditors, but he's very straight, because what his role is to secure that the creditors and the company in question comes out in the best way possible. And the reason why he is about to sign the document for releasing Norwegian is that it's better for the creditors and the companies that Norwegian emerges as a going concern than it goes bankrupt. And that leads back to Max's question on why should you invest in Norwegian? Okay, the creditors get, it's a very complicated, but I have to try to do it the easy way. The creditors get up, Class A get 25% of the new shares of the new company. the creditors without any, they don't have any collateral towards Norwegian, they get a dividend around 3.6 to 4%. And in this dividend, there is a cash portion and there is a stock portion. So if the Norwegian stocks rise, the dividend can actually be up to 10%. And if you look into bankruptcy cases and dividends and payment to creditors, if they are prioritized or unprioritized, and they get 10% unprioritized creditors, that's not too bad. And that's one of the reasons why they actually had been going on with this, saying also that they believe in the future of Norwegian and new business plan.
But in the end, I mean, in the end, it's pretty much the Norwegian government that believes in Norwegian, because if they wouldn't have given the money, then who would?
No, actually, the Norwegian government, they don't have any share, they don't have any ownership in Norwegian at all.
Yeah, but they provided this loan now that enables them to exit the administration, right?
Yeah, and this hybrid loan, it's going in at equity, so it's a smart financial instrument. But the Norwegian they really wants to pay back the government as soon as possible, just like Lufthansa has done.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But actually, it's the market who believes in Norwegian. And again, to illustrate how strong the belief of the market is the current stock price today at the Oslo Stock Exchange is 5.5 euros. Mm-hmm. But the emission price, which the market is going to get the capital in May, is for 0.6 euro. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So there is a huge difference in what the stock is traded for today and what will be the emission price in May. And that give a signal about how strong the market is looking for the future of Norwegian. But I think if I had any shares in Norwegian, I would sell them. But and buy new ones.
Okay.
but it's very complicated to take this on this webinar. But there is some instrument that gives the owners of Norwegian shares today options of new shares for in the emission and in the share rise that happens in May.
So John is nodding his head. I guess he wants to buy some shares as well.
No, I'm just staggered that the only reason this Phoenix is rising again is so that people who made an investment have found a way to get their money back. They made an investment, it was a risk, they've lost it. The only way they can recover it is by opening up something again that the market doesn't need. Does the Norwegian market fundamentally require Norwegian to operate?
Yes, they do, because the situation was that if you look 1 year back in time, and we can talk about this now because it's not secret anymore. The situation for Norwegian was actually very critical, and it was on the verge to go bankrupt. And the Norwegian government came in with a loan guarantee for 260 million euros. And of course, this was a high risk, but the Norwegian government, they did not want to have an equity or ownership in an airline, but they wanted to maintain a competitive environment in Norway so Norwegian could actually compete against primary SAS. This was before we knew that Wizz Air was putting a lot of capacity into the domestic Norwegian routes in October. So it was to balance the competitive situation in Norway that I wanted to try to secure Norwegian, and in order to not let SAS to get too much market share, and they would then expect that the airfares would get higher and less competition, and that's not something the Norwegian government wants to.
But that strikes me as being a very cautious and conservative way of looking at the market, because we know from historic situations when the market grows and when a competitor becomes extremely strong, a new entrant arrives. And Wizz Air were coming in the front door as Norwegian were going out the back door. So it seems to me the Norwegian government has been extremely cautious in its air service strategy by trying to hold on to Norwegian. Maybe they like the name Norwegian, maybe something to do with the country, I don't know. But it just strikes me as, well, we'll come on to Alitalia. It's another example of, holding on to something that has passed its sell-by date.
Well, and I mean, one thing that is clear in Norway is that there is alternatives, right? I mean, the moment that Norwegian came into trouble, saw that market, saw some entrepreneurs becoming, let's say, dreamish again. I mean, there is Flyer, which is now being in the process of starting up, and obviously the old Norwegian guys who made all this bet on the Dreamliners and lost it are just doing the same bet again with Norse Atlantic Airways, which is probably is pretty much the same. And I'm just
they didn't lose it though, did they, Max? Because the aircraft never went away. They've still got the same aircraft.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like
a magic trick. Yeah, it's really clever. It was in this hand. Oh no, it's in this one now.
Yeah.
But you have to keep in mind, guys, that Norway is a huge market. Primarily,
yeah, you keep saying that, yes.
Have more 55 million people traveled in 2019 within Norway or to or from Norwegian airports. So it's a huge market, and Norway, how the country actually looks like. We need to have an infrastructure that take care of transportation between all the countries, north and south. And secondary, there is a huge amount of people employed in ground, also in airports, in hospitality, in the travel industry. I would say 100,000 people. It's a huge economy in Norway.
But don't you think, Hans, don't you think that if they would let Norwegian go bust, just someone else would, without having to take so much government money, they could just, restart an airline? Or Wizz Air and Ryanair would just, divide the cake and be happy?
I would say the same. What should they do in Germany? What should they do in Italy? What should they do? I mean, you have to look on the bigger picture. And basically, Norwegian was not a bad run company. Their ambition was far too high, particularly in terms of too many aircrafts in too short time and too many long haul.
But I mean,
ambition isn't part of a well-run company. I mean, a well-run company would say this is our sweet spot. This is our perfect size. We don't go chasing long-haul dreams and vanity projects, and we stick to what we're good at. And if that means we go up and down the Norwegian coast, so be it. It's just strikes me that it's vanity, and now that every taxpayer in Norway is going to have to pay for it.
But okay, that's something. But if you look into the what Norwegian government has been paid out for the COVID-19, this 300 million euros to Norwegian is just
of course, and it's nothing to Germany or Italia.
Absolutely nothing.
But wait! I want to say something here. So I think Norwegian was dead long before COVID, right? And no, okay. But I think I would. So my statement is that they betted on this 787 thing and their low-cost long-haul thing, and I think that sank them. And I think COVID is now COVID maybe was the final nail in the. I think they would have gone the same fate. And why do I say that? Because Germany did have almost a similar airline called Air Berlin that was not clear on the business model, that went into, started calling themselves a hybrid airline, which I think is always for an abbreviation for management is trying to figure it out how to make money with planes they ordered having no plan in the back of their hands. But I mean, Germany let Air Berlin go bankrupt. So and I think you can't compare. I mean, yes, Germany spent a lot of money on airlines, and I think spending money on a Lufthansa or a Swiss is a wise thing to do because they were neatly run companies before that. Spending almost $1 billion now on Condor, something is a topic that no one has on the radar, but Condor, they went into Chapter 11 right after the Thomas Cook collapse, and they have since then almost gotten 1 billion in state guarantees and whatever, and no one seems to talk about it. And I don't think that the company was very sound before COVID, and I think it's money worth being lost. So I think it's gone, but I think that's what strikes me odd. If I would have been the Norwegian government, I would have just let Norwegian rest in peace. And would have encouraged someone else to fly those routes. Because you have because you know it's not like you wouldn't have an airline. You have SAS. You know, you're in the luxury of supporting two airlines.
I'll get into that, Max. I'll get into that. So I can tell you a little secret now, and because it's a year ago. So Norwegian was in very tough troubles in April last year. About this time, we are in the end of April. And the situation was that Norway, they don't have any ownership in any airline, not even in SAS.
Yeah.
So, but the Swedish and the Danish government, they had at that time around 14% each. And the question was, would we invest, should the Norwegian government be an owner in SAS on the same basis as Sweden and Denmark, or should we support our own airline? I mean, the Norwegian airline in Norway that has been doing a good job for more than 20 years. Mm-hmm. So I think they played with two cards. They tried to save Norwegian, and the joker was if Norwegian can bust, they're going to invest in SAS. But it happened that the Norwegian is still flying, and SAS today is owned 44% by the Swedish and Danish government. And Norway has no plans to invest to become an owner in SAS, neither any plans to become an owner in Norwegian. And Norway is open for competition. They don't want to force Wizz Air or other airlines out as long as they follow the rules of the game. But if Norwegian had been gone bust 1 year ago, the vacuum would be unpredictable. And the Norwegian government has to think on a wider scale here. All right. And secondly, just to close that one, is that during the course of Norwegian the last year, the Norwegian government actually been very smart. They've been securing the funds, so the funds from Norway to Norwegian has not ended in the creditors' pockets. And they have been doing a very, very controlled approach, so the creditors haven't got 1 cent from Norwegian taxpayers' money, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. It's actually
to close this topic. Just one last question from our friend Gavin down there from Lisbon, who is asking about the actual strategy of Norwegian, because he says that on the website there are still schedules from Stockholm and from Copenhagen. So, do you think would this continue, or they will mainly focus on Oslo?
Yes, we should expect Norwegian to continue flying from Stockholm, Arlanda, from Copenhagen, Kastrup, from Alicante and Malaga, and of course from Oslo. So we will see how their base structure will be. I also think we will see Norwegian flying from Helsinki, because their main catchment area is the Nordic countries, the same as SAS. So the two main combatants in the air over Scandinavia will be SAS and Norwegian going forward.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Finnair will be there, but they are being very hard hit by COVID-19, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right. Very quickly to Italy, where another saga is going on, actually for decades, and that saga can be named pumping cash in permanently loss-making carrier. Now, Italian government is in talks with the EU over potential restructuring of Alitalia. If the Alitalia will launch the new state-owned airline, and over the previous weekend, 40 flights have been cancelled due to a strike of airline employees who were protesting against what they understand as a plan to destroy the airline. And I just couldn't help myself, but I had to laugh, and I had to share it with you when I saw the statement of a guy called Fabio Frati, the union representative, who said, "We have become a symbol to this country, a symbol of the sovereignty and independence of this nation." So, John, a quick question for you, as I know it's your favorite topic. So tell me, what would you do if you were in the shoes of Mario Draghi, Italian Prime Minister? What would you do with Alitalia?
it's good reason to resign and do something else. I mean, it's not a problem child, is it? It's beyond a problem child. I can't believe the European Union at this moment in time have got this on their agenda when there are much more important European things that need to be sorted out, such as, you know, a pan-European process towards COVID, rules, travel, etc., etc. It's just absolute madness. I love the comment from the guy in the union, though, who talks about sovereignty. Yes. I mean, Jesus, you know, Italy's part of the European Union. That's what you all wanted. That's what you've got. You know, over here, we're not part of the European Union, and that's not
really. When did that happen?
Yeah, but we probably didn't want that to happen, but it has. You know, and we live with the consequences of one of the highest rates of vaccination in the world at the moment, while your Dutch government is throwing away 20 million vaccination jabs this week. You know, God, we're in a mess, aren't we? Aviation is in a mess. We spent 30 minutes talking about Norwegian that, quite frankly, if it was a corner shop in Manchester, would have been wound up, closed, and the shutters put up, and someone's trying to rescue it. And we're talking about a failed business here that for 40 years has constantly failed. You reap what you're going to reap what you deserve. And quite frankly, the sooner Ryanair get in there and really stoke it up and make it difficult, then the better for every person who wants to go to and from Italy.
I mean, Alitalia since 2008 got 5.4 billion euros in state support, and Max was very hard on Norwegian taxpayers' money.
I'm sorry for that. Yeah, I'm hard on them as well.
Over the border to Italy and ask that question, Max.
But he would be just as hard on Alitalia. You know, it is just a classic. It's a classic symbol of hanging on to the past in what is supposed to be a single market.
You know what my biggest question right now is, and I haven't completely figured that out. So obviously the Alitalia that we know is going to die because the Italian government, for the fifth time now, or the sixth time, or I've stopped counting, is starting a new co. And in the past, they would call it Alitalia again. And this new co now is being called ITA, Italia Trasporto Aereo. And I've been told they will even drop the A now from the tail. So that is, I don't care about the state subsidy. It's like, will they really drop the A and you know, will really be ITA? Will that be the name, or, you know, will it just be will they just be called ITA, doing business as Alitalia again? So that is the one thing that I haven't figured out. So because Alitalia might soon be dead for real, and then we have something that's called ITA that is the new thing. But I just see so many problems there, because the EU already said that if they do that, Alitalia has to return a lot of slots. And
yes,
yeah, I have said it many times, many years ago. I think this is the last time Alitalia is able to survive. This time I have a feeling it's really coming to an end. But yeah, it's a saga, right? And in all honesty, if it wouldn't be for Italy, we wouldn't even find it funny. But because it's Italy, it's like it's somehow it's what you expect, you know.
It's part of the culture.
Yeah, it's why Swiss and German people like to go to Italy, because, you know, it's just this thing they do these things in a sort of a funny way. And you think it's somehow funny, but in the end, obviously, it's an underlying big problem for that country. And I mean, if we look at it from a bigger picture, obviously Italy, but also Spain, they're most affected by this COVID crisis, right? So I don't think we're only talking about can they save Alitalia, but actually can they save the country? Because let's be honest, if there are no tourists showing up in Italy or in Spain as of 1st of June, both countries will have
tell me,
big problems.
Max, has Alitalia ever been profitable?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a year or two in the 70s where I think they were profitable. Yeah,
because if you look
similar to the old Sabena. I think Sabena posted a profit once. Yeah.
Because the question you asked about Norwegian, if they, you know, profitability and so on, Norwegian has been profitable several years, and the long haul business, you're closing into it. So, you know, that Norwegian is a completely different case than Alitalia. Alitalia has structurally been, you know, even under Etihad, you know, how much did they invest into Alitalia?
Yeah, but you know, the problem is, I think, yeah, you're right. Norwegian and Alitalia can't be compared because Norwegian had a very profitable business, and then they came up with, I think if they have just continued to be a pardon my English, a kick-ass low-cost carrier for the Nordics, I think they would have done very, very fine if they wouldn't have gone into these experiments. But Alitalia has a structural business problem, and that is that they have no market left. Because
their problem, quite frankly, is Fabio, isn't it?
Yeah, and his buddies.
Yes.
I'm totally with you.
But you know, John, the problem is I don't think it's only the unions anymore. I think the unions were a big part of the problem 15, 20 years ago, but because they have never addressed these problems, and we have more of these government-owned run airlines in Europe, you know, their markets are gone. I mean, in Milano, what Alitalia has left there is, you know, I mean, EasyJet, Ryanair, Wizz Air, they're closing in. So they have Rome left, and that's where we talk long haul. But it's like, you know, I don't see how they could ever return those markets into profitability. So I think it's, I mean, I don't want to say it, but I think someone needs to tell Rome, you know, you just need to pull the plug and that's it.
Yeah.
But I think isn't Ryanair the #1 airline in Italy now, right?
Good question. I need to check that.
Yeah. Yeah. While you are checking that, Max, let's move to another topic. Let's move back to Norway, but let's not discuss about Norway, but let's discuss about the model itself. So low cost, long haul. I guess we all agree that nobody has so far proved that it can work. John, or am I missing somebody?
I think it's it had its moment of opportunity and it's gone. You know, a couple of factors, not least of which is COVID. You're going to have to operate low cost long haul at 95% type load factors. How are you going to manage that with all of the social distancing and all the fears and the concerns that are existing there? And I think you've also got the, you know, let's not forget oil is 76% more expensive than it was this time last year. The DOCs are escalating. Low cost long haul tended to be less than daily to most destinations, so it's quite fragmented. The mainstream legacy carriers are going to be on, you know, watch to make sure they get every possible long haul passenger. I can't see a strategy that is going to work, and leave it to the legacy carriers.
And there probably is a reason why Michael O'Leary or Wizz Air or any other successful low-cost carrier had never went down this route. Yeah,
and you know, we're already seeing some interesting longer low-cost sectors, aren't we? With JetBlue's now got slots at Heathrow. They've got a management team in Europe. The 321 XLR being used by Aer Lingus from Manchester to do transatlantic. You know, that's probably the right type of model, and it will be successful. We don't need these wide-bodied, low-cost long hauls.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that is a good question here that I've been recently been discussing with a friend of mine who works with one of the legacies. Let's say one of Europe's leading legacy airline groups, and he told me that they're also very, very closely following what JetBlue is doing there with these A321 Neo XLRs, because they think it can go one way or the other. Obviously, if it goes one way, they will, you know, just say, "Yeah, we told you so." If it goes the other way,
to Heathrow, and it can fly back from Heathrow. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, almost. But the thing is that these guys are really, I mean, the legacies are watching that experiment, what JetBlue does there very, very closely, because they obviously don't want to burn their own hands, but they might, if that has the slightest chance of being successful, I think that's what we're going to see. And I just wanted to add one more thing for the wide body low cost thing. That is the key work of the legacies, right? So I totally agree with John. I think we'll see a complete bloodbath there during that recovery, because that is market they want to have back. So I don't see any low cost carrier with wide bodies doing anything successful in the near future.
Well,
Okay,
I don't
Hans. So,
know
so
that,
now is your turn. So tell us what on earth those guys in Norway are thinking. How can they make this work successfully?
I think we have to break down, a bit what is the business plan for Norse Atlantic Airways. First of all, we have to look into how will COVID-19 change travel behavior. It's likely that we will see the premium traffic, the business-related traffic, to drop significantly, and that is that's the bread on the butter for the legacy carriers. But again, we expect, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, we expect leisure and VFR traffic to grow immensely. And I think that is the piece of the market that Norse Atlantic Airways is looking into. And they also have, those 9 787s they have been contracted by AirCap, which is 6 9ers and 3 8ers. They have been leased to very attractive conditions, which we don't know the details, but some people say maybe 50% below monthly lease rates. And I just found something here, looking at the lease rate for 787-9, it's around 805 million euro, 800,000 euros, dollars per month. And if they get 50% discount on that or more for a period of time, that will give them a cost base versus the competition, and together having a lean organization, and keeping in mind that the long haul business for Norwegian was not a failure. The problem was that the engines for the Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engines put a lot of stress on the company, and they got the aircraft, the long haul aircraft, in too fast. And so they couldn't place them as they wanted. They have to do a lot of test and failures. And this will not be the case for Norse. They've learned all the failures,
when do they plan to start operations? What's the schedule?
They plan to start, I think, late fourth quarter this year, or maybe in Q1 2022. Mm-hmm. But they learned from Norwegian about what they did wrong and what they did right. And you should keep in mind that United States was the #1 point of sales for Norwegian in 2019. So the growth and the demand for the services Norwegian provided was huge. And I think that is what Norse is going to capitalize from.
As you make the perfect point. They're getting a very special lease rate for a couple of years, but that's not the lease rate for the term of the lease agreement, is it? That's, that has some fairly heavy ratchets as they go through the lease period, and it's unsustainable. That's a Ponzi bubble. We've seen these in the past where these airlines come in with very low lease rates, they secure market share. Unless you keep adding aircraft and getting your unit costs down, at some point your costs become too high for the market you're serving.
Yeah, but that Norse will have a manageable fleet. They have a contract for 9 787s now, and they probably have 12 within this year contract for. And then we will have that they don't want to expand so much like what Norwegian did. So they can more capitalize on using those aircraft on routes, on a frequency, and so on, which Norwegian couldn't, because they got a new 787 every second month.
Hang on, I'm just going to hit my head on my desk because I feel like I've heard this story from Norwegian before. Hang on. Are they not replicating the failures of last time?
It's the same people, John. It's the same people.
Why they'll be replicating
it's not the same people. And they got 150 million euro.
Who gives them this money?
In 2 hours.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing
about it. In 2 hours, they raised 150 million euros.
Yeah, but it's always these unrealistic projects that get the funding, and because when you go to the table as a normal airline manager and you say that we are doing it the normal way and with the normal expectations, then usually everyone walks away and says, yeah, I'm not getting my money. So I mean, yes, I've seen these. I mean, we've seen these. I'm there more with John. I'm sorry for that. But we've seen that in the past as well. Airlines that come to the market with building these dream castles, and then people actually investing in them, and then I mean,
on, Max, join me in some head banging. Let's do some.
What? I join you with the numbers for Alitalia. So I looked that up actually.
But keep in mind, Max and John. We all Max writing something, John's writing something, I writing something. But you have to keep in mind one thing had to be very clear. When we're talking about a new Norwegian, we're talking about the small Flyr that is starting up in Norway here in the end of June, and we're talking about Norse Atlantic Airways. Those airlines will have very limited debt and liabilities. Norse will have nothing. Flyr will have nothing. How much debt do Lufthansa going to get up with? KLM, Air France, SAS,
absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a good topic for next time. What are they all doing with this debt? I mean, yeah, I agree.
You're absolutely right. But another thing, can Norse survive without connecting traffic?
No, but they get them from Norwegian, right? I mean, that's what I think is.
No, Norwegian doesn't exist anymore.
I think that Norwegian will exist, and there will be airlines in Europe that could be feeder airlines, to be airlines in the United States that could be feeder airlines. I think that will mature. I think we will see that there is a lot of interest of fighting against the legacy carriers. And someone mentioned Ryanair did not want to fly long haul. I'm not sure that was right, because Ryanair were thinking about long haul for a long time. And it's actually the foot was put on the brake just before they wanted to go live for it. So Michael O'Leary has been thinking of that. That's several years.
I remember you were working there in his team, so I guess you are.
Yeah. So I'm not saying anything secret about Ryanair.
But Hans, Ryanair. Though we all admire Michael O'Leary and his team, I obviously think they're doing a fantastic job. It's not that these guys are not doing mistakes as well. Buying Lauda, he already said that was probably a big mistake he did, and he's probably sitting on his farm in Ireland right now, thinking, "I'm so happy I didn't go into long haul low cost." So. Yeah, I don't see it. I just, but obviously, I'm an armchair CEO sitting here, so I'm happily letting someone prove me wrong.
All right, guys.
Michael O'Leary was right. He did right by not going into long haul, because Ryanair, they are loyal to their business plan 100%. I don't want to deviate about that. That's the problem. When you have a good business plan, you should stick to it. And that's what they are doing with the Norse. They have a solid business plan. The restructure plan for Norwegian is solid. The new plan for Flyr, the small Norwegian airline, is pretty solid too. And that makes the markets actually, believe and investing funds in it. And I don't think we should under-consider the new VFR and leisure segment. That travel will not stop because of COVID-19. It will be different, and those newcomers might get a position. They won't be the number one brand to New York, to the United States, but they will give the possibility for the market to choose price, and Norse will be exactly working on price products. So the same as Ryanair, price is driving in the market. If you have a low price, people will fly, John. You know that.
I mean, that's what, just to break that. I mean, that's one thing probably worth discussing next time. I mean, if I look at Ryanair's financial numbers, their net margin has gone down drastically from 2015 to before the pandemic. I mean, in 2015, they had a 23% margin, and that over the years went down to 11% in 2019. So I think Ryanair, though sticking to their their business model. I think they had problems at their hand as well, and that's maybe worth to discuss if before COVID we had reached such a saturation and such a wild growth in Europe that Ryanair and others would get into trouble as well. But I mean, that's obviously a topic for another hour here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have 7 minutes, so let's talk very quickly about the upcoming summer. I remember CEO of London Southern Airport, Glyn Jones, being quoted in Financial Times earlier this year when he said, "We just cannot afford to have another terrible summer." To me, it looks like the massive optimism we all had just faded away, and even the most bullish CEOs of Ryanair and Wizz Air are now being much more cautious about their summer expectation. Vaccination is slower than expected. Travel restrictions continue. So question to all of you, and each of you, you have like 2 minutes for that. What has to happen so this summer is at least a little bit better than the previous one for the aviation and tourism industry?
Open the doors. That's all you've got to do. Open the doors, take the risk, and you will see people jumping to get on aircraft as quickly as possible. But it's not going to happen because too many people are too scared to take those decisions, all of those sort of things. It is madness. And this summer has the potential to be a worse summer for European aviation than last year.
And the main reason for that, you are saying, is to be
because we've got no
we missed the opportunity
strategy across every European country and perhaps the United States, which is a big volume market in the summer. We have no coherent strategy about vaccinations, about travel protocols, what travel pass you can use, what you need to test. As Gavin has quite rightly said, you know, if he's been invited to come back to the UK to have a vaccine, but he's going to have to spend 10 days in the Premier Inn Heathrow on the Bath Road before he can have it. I'd stay where you are. I mean, it's just, but it is madness, and we need to sort that out. And then it's got to go across every international market, because the hub carriers in the Middle East are in exactly, you know, they're not going to survive if we continue to just have access from UAE to the UK or to Greece or wherever. It has to have access into the Southeast Europe, Asian markets and Australasia. We're in for a bad summer if we're not careful, and it will hit us before we realise it.
Hans, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with John. I think there needs to be a collective EU initiative here to make sure that you can travel within EU in some way with a kind of digital health pass or numbers, and you need to have dates, because legacy airlines need 5 to 7 weeks to scale up their traffic program. And if they don't know until 1 week before that, it's going to be green, I mean, they don't have time. But that gives the options to Michael O'Leary, David O'Brien, and Joseph Varadi, and the guy in EasyJet, because they are standing on alert and can launch their fleet anytime. And they will it's a gift to them if that happens. And they will take control of the airspace in Europe, the LCCs, if the government doesn't give a good warning.
All right,
I think.
Max?
Well, actually, I don't see it that grim as John and Hans. Obviously, I mean, John is just scared because they procured the wrong vaccine, right? And all of the mutations are probably making the vaccine less effective. But in Europe, everyone else gets BioNTech and Moderna, right? So that's fine. No, jokes aside, I think what we'll see is the EU will. Well, obviously they have this initiative that as of 1st of June, they want to have this travel pass and everything, because obviously they have two choices. They either let the tourists spend their money in the south, or they have to, rescue the south at the end of this year again. So even Miss Merkel cannot, prevent that. Though she already said she doesn't want to have anyone traveling this summer, but, she's a lame duck anyway. So I think that's something that's happening. And what we'll see is that some of these countries will just open up. Greece, like last year, Greece will open up very it will not be coordinated. They will just open up. I think Spain will not do the same mistake as last year. They will open up. Italy is on the road of opening up. Turkey just made a major lockdown because they don't want to risk the tourist season. So for 3-4 weeks, they'll just shut down everything. because they want to have the tourists in the summer. So I think we'll have a summer, and I think we are always talking about how fast the low cost carriers, etc., are, but I think that the legacies are on high alert as well. At least when I look out of the window, I live next to Zurich Airport. I see a lot of aircraft from Swiss and Helvetic that are, you know, ready to mingle any second. I've heard from Eurowings they have already scheduled 21 cabin crew courses until August. Sorry. So I think every airline in Europe is ready to jumpstart. The question is, when will that happen? You know,
and therein lies the problem. It will require until the end of August before they can fully resource their fleet.
Yeah, well, that's. But you know, the thing is, with the rollout of the vaccination, we'll have most of Europe vaccinated, not before mid of July, beginning of August, anyway.
Are you talking 2022?
No. I think that's no. Really, we're talking about having Europe mass vaccinated by mid of the summer, and I think at least big parts of it. You know,
that's
and
optimistic.
well, let's see. I mean, Germany is now vaccinating about 800,000 people a day, so they're 6 weeks behind the US. So yeah. I think, you know, and then they're already talking about. I mean, in Switzerland we have that. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to quarantine or anything. The same goes for Croatia. If you're vaccinated, go. I mean, it's unfair to youngsters like me who will get it probably by the end of July, but that's what it is. And then I am not so that you know, the sheer numbers of vaccinations that are now coming out of those factories are, you know, they're making an impact, and we all start to know more and more people that are vaccinated. So I'm not so, well, I'm obviously an optimist, so probably become it might, you know, there might be setbacks, new mutations, whatever, but I don't think that the summer will be as bad as last year, and I think we'll have a pretty nice fall. So
I think
that is my opinion, but obviously
it's provided that you will have consolidated air regulations in terms of a birth health certificate, so you can travel.
I mean, I would hope for that, Hans. I would hope for that, but I think in the end, every country will do its own thing again.
Exactly.
What a mess.
Problem.
What a mess.
Yeah. It will be a mess, and it is bothersome. But you know, in the end, I'm proof that you can travel if you want to. It's just bothersome. Yeah, that's true. It's like traveling in the 50s, where at crossing from Germany to Switzerland, you would still get the stamp from customs. You know,
and except you're not allowed to smoke on the plane.
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, it was fascinating talking to you and listening to you talking. Thanks a lot for your time and for all your opinions. It was great. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We will be back in May for sure with another edition of Sky Heroes. In the meantime, don't forget to register for our flagship African event, Aviation Africa, which is planned to held on 9 till 11 June. We already have almost 40 airlines lined up, most of the African carriers, many international airlines as well. It will be free to attend for everyone. So 9 till 11 June, Aviation Africa is on schedule. And thanks a lot again for joining us. Stay safe, everyone, and enjoy some nice days. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.